All right, here we go. It turns out I'm actually not going to talk about horoscopes at all today. So you can just imagine whatever you like with respect to that graphic on the right side. But it's my not so subtle way of saying I think that the value of them is becoming compelling. Let me get this going. And if this works, we change the slide. So the topics I'd like to cover are a little bit of how we got to the current situation of what borescopes provide that is, in an essence, better than FAA requirements for annual engine inspections. We'll look at some of the evolution of borescopes. Borescope technology has changed very dramatically in the last 10 years, and the prices have just plummeted. And I'll give you 3 examples. Then we'll talk about how to use one, and when you're using it, what to look for, and specifically some findings that are immediately actionable if you happen to see them. And then lastly, since all of the current crop of borescopes can generate pictures of all the internal components of your cylinders, and if you want to put the borescope in other parts of your engine, you can do that too. And just some suggestions of what you can do with those pictures to build a nice kind of archive of engine health over the years if you happen to own an aircraft. Okay, so first of all, I need to acknowledge Mike Bush, who got the ball rolling for me with an article he wrote in 2017 in AOPA Pilot magazine that was entitled Borescope Ascendancy. Many of you may have read that. And the second part of that title is it time to topple the venerable compression test? And he made some recommendations, and really my presentation this evening is mostly to echo what Mike said, but to add some new things that have occurred that have made the capability of the scopes even more compelling. So if you own an airplane, or you've just had the opportunity to work on them, you know that compression tests, differential compression tests, are required by the FAA as a specific part of both an annual inspection for a certified aircraft or a condition inspection for a home built. And those compression tests have been in use for over 80 years. The regs that actually do trace back almost all the way back to the 50s. And if you talk to, I don't know, Gray Eagle mechanics, they will tell you they were brought up with a conventional wisdom that with this device that you, on the left-hand side, you have a connection to an air compressor. You set that so that you load 80 PSI. And then this side is measuring the pressure in the cylinder at top dead center. And you basically very carefully open that valve. And then there's a fixed orifice. And you look to see how much pressure the cylinder can maintain when the input is 80 PSI. And so what a lot of people learn, and I know I learned this when I was first doing owner-assisted maintenance, is that the conventional wisdom is that if you put 80 PSI into a cylinder and it can hold some number in the high 70s, that's really excellent. Low 70s is good. Then when you drift into the 60s, it's considered marginal. And some mechanics will tell you that a number below 60 is not airworthy. And that was the major point of Mike Bush's article, that that's just flat out wrong. And he references a change that occurred beginning in the 1980s when Continental, as an engine manufacturer actually did some of their own industrial research on their own engines. And they were able, by basically filing increasingly large gaps in the compression rings, to show that you could have compressions as low as 40/80 and the engine would still produce full horsepower. But what would change as you lost that sealing was you begin to see an increase in oil consumption. And in fact, Continental issued a service bulletin in 2003 that was based on that research that specified that for Continental engines, the annual inspection should include both a borescope and a compression test. And they specified that the borescope was really the gold standard for assessing airworthiness, not the compression test. So in that Continental guidance from 2003, they recommended what they called a low-cost rigid borescope. To them, low cost was $2,000. And the one they specified or recommended was the Lennox Autoscope. It was called Autoscope because it was designed for autos, not airplanes. You can see these pieces of it here. It almost looks like a piece of medical equipment, like something they'd stick in your ear. But it had very good optics. And it had a side camera that would look, you can see the side camera here on that notch. So it could look straight ahead and it could also look back, but it couldn't take any pictures. And this is a picture of someone using that Lennox Autoscope. So in 2016, the first one that kind of broke through the price barrier by dropping it by a factor of 10 was the Vividia AbleScope. It's still available. It was about $250 back in 2016, and I went out and I bought one because of Mike Bush's article about what you could see inside of your engine. And it's I'm going to show you one of these live. I'm going to stop the program here in just a moment and show you both the Vividia and the one that is the newer technology. And it was the first widely available low cost that had an articulating head. So with a control that you had in your hand, you could actually turn the thing all the way around and have it in any angle from straight ahead to basically 180 degrees back. It had a USB connection. You could connect it to a computer or a smartphone, and it yielded a 640 by 480 digital photo, which seems pretty primitive these days. And so the featured edition, I have no stock in this. I'm just a satisfied customer since I got one of these things a few weeks ago. Is what I'm calling the Gen 3 borescope is the same idea. It has an articulating head, but it has much better ergonomics, much easier to control using this thumb wheel that you can. So the buttons you need to take pictures and to change the intensity of the light are right here underneath your thumb. And the thumb wheel will change the articulation, and you can go back and forth with it. And it has its own, it powers, when you plug it into a smartphone, it'll actually automatically download an app that will show HD, high definition. There are 720 lines per inch, but the actual images are 1920 by 1080. So that's like an HD TV picture. And they also are $200. And I will put this, maybe I can just do this now. I'll put it on in the chat of the thing, or you can just search Amazon for Teslong, T-E-S-L-O-N-G, articulating borescope, or it's actually also called an endoscope. And you'll see it's like $199 something. So let me shift now to, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And then I am going to show you that I'm actually not in the hangar because I have to go to my office here. So, oh golly, here I am just in in my office, but this will give me the opportunity to show you that these borescopes. So here, I'll back up a little bit. Let me know if my audio unplugs or anything like that. So it comes, this is a NVIDIA EagleScope. They're still available. And it looks to me like they've upgraded their optics. So they, if you get one now, they may actually be equivalent to, yeah, and Dubs is nodding. So this is the penalty you pay when you're early adopter. You get the early vision. But what hasn't changed is that they have a rigid tube. You can see here, the USB plugs in, and the light comes on here. And as you press a button on the back, to get that a little closer. So as you press the button on the back, you see the front begins to move like that. And you can bring it around and then it locks. And Dubs still have this behavior where it basically stays wherever you put it. And then the only thing you can really do to undo it is you press a collar that makes it snap back to straight. And it's usable, but it means you can't sort of look around because it always kind of, you have to go back to starting straight ahead in order to go look at another thing.
Hey, Dan.
But yeah.
You might be interested to know, I had one of those just like the one you have with that locking feature. And at this past Oshkosh, I bought a new one and it didn't have the locking feature on it. And I asked them, why doesn't it have that? And they said too many people were tearing up their borescope by leaving it locked and pulling it out and messing up that thing. So they just took the locking feature off of it. But my new one won't lock.
Yeah, so are you able to hold it steady with your thumb on the end there?
Well, you can hold it, but it's not perfectly steady. It's subject to how steady your thumb is.
Yeah, and so I think that, so since the new version of the NVIDIA actually may have the same image quality, which I found just astonishing with this new one, then it sort of continues to get the benefit of being, I'm gonna fire it up here with my phone. So the new one actually has this grip that holds your phone. And I see it's actually, I have it pointing at I can point it at the scope here and you'll see the picture. You can look around at other stuff. If you have a medical bag, you can look at your teeth. It's kind of gross, but you can see the back of your mouth, your throat and stuff if you want to see if you've got a sore throat. Anyway, so the nice thing about this one is that if you look at my hand moving the thumb wheel here on the right, and then I put this here, you can continuously kind of look around with it. So you can go back and forth and you can turn it. It's a floppy scope. It's not rigid like the other one. But what I found is you can stick it in the cylinder and then use it to actually move the prop so that the piston goes down to bottom center just by using the scope to tell you're at the bottom, and then sit the scope down right on the top of the piston and look all the way back. Then you can look around at all kinds of stuff in your cylinders. So it's a lot more usable, and it also has this feature that if you take a picture, you just, while you're using your thumb wheel, you just use your thumb and press the other button there. You can also control the brightness of the scope. It has 3 different levels and you can turn it off. And so what I found with the NVIDIA is that I first use it with a laptop and then I have my cell phone, and the doggone cell phone was always sitting on top of some other cylinder and falling out. And I didn't have enough hands to hold it all. So it sort of wins on the basis of that. So I'm going to go ahead and, oh, and I'll also see, you can, I don't know if you can see this, but it'll show you, this is my gallery of photos from inside my cylinders from last week. I was doing the annual on the plane. So it's like at the same price. I think it wins by virtue of ergonomics and really stunning image quality, which I'm going to show you now. Unless there are there questions about either of those two?
Dan, can that handle an iPad mini rather than a phone?
Yeah, absolutely. It comes with a set of cables. It comes in a nice little case, like the Vividia. It's a soft case, but it comes with both connectors for iPhones, iPads, and the old USBs and the new USB-Cs. So it's nice that you get all of those.
Yeah, but the mount that you have the phone there, does that expand up big enough so that an iPad mini can fit in that mount?
Oh, no, I think not. I don't know how big it'll go, but it doesn't look like it, Doug.
Okay.
I've got a pretty large Android here, and I think it wouldn't go to a mini, but it certainly would hold any of the iPhones.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
If you could paste the link, when I Googled it, I get like all sorts of things for rifles.
Okay, yeah. So I will, I'll do that at the end.
Perfect, thank you.
Because I'm going to go back to my slideshow and I actually can't copy and paste out a slideshow. All right, so here we go, back to screen sharing.
And I was looking at some of the info on the Vividia, and apparently the Vividia you can connect to a PC, but the Tessalon, the HD that you just showed, apparently it's cell phone only, Android and iPad. It said it will not connect to a PC.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you about how to do that.
Okay.
You don't do it in real time, but you can get all of the advantages. This is how you use it. Basically, you remove one spark plug from each cylinder, and I've found that the top is easiest with this new one. But in order to be able to see all the valves, I had to actually take out both plugs when I was using the able scope. And you can insert the scope with it pointing straight ahead, just enough to see the piston position, then rotate it, as I say, to get bottom dead center for max viewing. And then what are you looking for? Well, you can basically see the piston head, cylinder walls, and cylinder head, intake and exhaust valves, and spark plug deposits. So looking at the piston head, you'll definitely see something in the way of at least carbon deposits. You might have some shiny little nodules of lead in there, but usually not on the piston head. Hopefully you won't see structural damage, because if you have a hole in your piston, your day's already been ruined. As you look at cylinder walls, I'll show you some of the healthy cross-hatching, but you can also see scuffing and wear if a piston's moving against the walls. You can see cylinder head deposits can include both lead nodules and carbon. Importantly, the intake and exhaust valves, and also, for what it's worth, spark plug deposits in the little well where it sits. So first of all, this is what every horizontally opposed aviation engine these days, air-cooled, has. It has two valves. It has a big one, that's the intake valve, and a little one, that's the exhaust valve. And when they're in the cylinder, so this is a cylinder removed from an airplane, and you're looking up from as if you were sitting on the crankshaft. There's no piston there. You're just looking up at the top of the cylinder. And so you see the larger intake valve, the smaller exhaust valve, which usually has distinctive coloring. And then we have a spark plug on the top and the bottom here, and then the cylinder walls. So these are the actual pictures from the test-long scope of my IO540, which is now 1,250 hours since new. You can see it's got pretty shiny cylinder walls, and the top doesn't look too bad. This stuff, this yellow stuff, is carbon. And it's in real life, it's about the same color as the kind of tan dust you get when you clean plugs. That is also kind of granular carbon. If you turn the scope to look at the side, you can tell that this cross hatching, which is done by honing at the time of original manufacture of the cylinder, and it's critical because these little tiny scratches are actually oil channels that keep lubrication, keep essentially the oil control ring from scraping the cylinder dry. And so they are a essential source of lubrication for the cylinder. And I was amazed. I couldn't see this with my Able scope, but these things really jump out with the new scope. And I was very pleased to see they almost looked like brand new honing on a cylinder for one that's been flying for 15 years and 1,250 hours. This is a partially open exhaust valve. You can see it's off of its seat there. And it shows you the characteristic pattern that's referred to as burnt, sometimes referred to as burnt pizza. So you have this kind of granular brown to black, usually a kind of center area, and then an edge that should be symmetrical. There shouldn't be substantial asymmetries, and I'll show you some examples of that. And then behind it in the cylinder head here, you can see some pretty gnarly carbon deposit. This one looks like it got thick enough and just broke off and then it went out the exhaust valve at some point. And then you see these little shiny nodules, and those I can't prove it right now, but as you move the scope over, you see they're definitely metallic looking. So they're likely to be the same kind of lead nodules you see in the plugs. And actually this was an eye opener for me because I realized I've been flying this airplane ever since the pandemic started. I had been doing low altitude, short flights just to kind of splash some lubrication onto the cams and keep the engine running every week, as opposed to the way that it usually flew. And that is, it would normally do 3-hour cross countries up to the Pacific Northwest and back. And I got a lot more carbon in my cylinders from running rich and running at low altitude in an engine that really likes to run up high in the mid-teens, is where this airplane normally flies its cross countries. This is an intake valve, again, partially open. You see, it's actually pretty remarkably clear. Again, there's carbon on the head of the cylinder. And I had, with my other borescope, I had never picked up these little carbon deposits right at the bottom of, these are massive plug electrode spark plugs. And I hadn't seen that before, but it was just dramatically clear. Here you see another kind of burnt pizza. This is a different cylinder, the other one. And you see it actually has a little carbon blip right there. So this one dropped, the compression check on this cylinder dropped by 6 points. It had been 80 over 80 and it went to 74 over 80. And I bet it was probably due to seeding caused by these little carbon things. So I'm definitely going to go out and fly this thing a lot longer time to see if I can get these cylinders to clean themselves up. This is a picture from Mike Bush, and there's an AOPA downloadable document on borescopes and valves that you can get from their website, and they have a very similar picture that says green is stop. If you see asymmetry and you see green like this on an exhaust valve, you've got a valve that is telling you it is just about to have a catastrophic failure. So if you see that kind of half moon and these rainbow-like colors with green at the outside, you have a severely damaged exhaust valve, and it's time to do something. Don't wait for it to snap off. I did have that happen to a Lycoming 0320. I was flying out over the Chesapeake Bay, and suddenly it started trying to, the engine started vibrating in an attempt to leave the airplane. It was hammering so hard, and we got vectors from the Norfolk approach to an emergency landing at Melfa Field, and when the engine stopped, the prop couldn't turn anymore because the valve had fractured and the stem had the valve had fallen into the cylinder, and it was an exhaust. It was the number 4 exhaust valve. So you don't want that to happen. It's no fun. The reason that why exhaust valves are especially vulnerable, and so here is a split. And this is an article actually that Mike Bush is going to be publishing in the next month or so. That shows you the difference between continental valves and Lycomings. So Lycomings have metallic sodium in them that becomes a liquid at about 600 degrees Fahrenheit. And so Lycoming engines are designed to dissipate the exhaust heat of the gases going by this valve, by about half of it being dissipated by the valve seat and the other half by the valve stem through this liquid metallic sodium. And so if you look at the temperatures at the top of these two different valves, they're about the same. They're in the high 600s. Down here at the top of the cylinder, they're in the 1200 range. It could be as high as 14 or 1500. But you see that the Continental is at a disadvantage because it basically has to shed 80% of the heat by the contact of the valve to the valve seat, and only about 20% from the valve stem. And that's a problem for both types of valves because of this feature that the valve face does not match the angle of the valve seat. So the valve seat is at 45 degrees, the valve face is at 44. So you see there's a wedge there, and it makes a very, very small contact patch that basically has to conduct a tremendous amount of heat. And if you have either wobbling of the stem or you have an imprecisely seated valve, it will very much cause a risk of part of the valve overheating, because the other thing that these valves have to do is they have to rotate. That's down here. And so both Continentals and Lycomings have a little mechanism. The Lycoming is a little cap on the top. There's a kind of a spring thing on the Continental valve that basically advances the valve about 1 degree. Every time it opens and closes, it advances about 1 degree. So in essence, in the course of about 1 minute or so, you'll get a complete rotation of the valve around its valve seat and its valve stem. This is also a picture from Mike Bush, and it shows you a set from left to right of exhaust valves, where this one's they look kind of pitted and ugly, but that's actually normal, even for a high time valve. Here's the same thing, which has got some burnt pizza accretions on it, but that's also healthy. Here you see a valve that's beginning to show some asymmetry. It's got basically similar, but it's got a little bit of asymmetry with a spot there. And then in these two on the right, these are very unhealthy valves. So look at this really large U-shaped half moon set of kind of crescent shaped that are basically centered on an extreme hotspot. And here's one that has the dreaded green patina and then followed by orange. And that's a valve that's just about ready to give up the ghost. So that's actually the most important thing to see. And although if you're a home builder, you can kind of act on that information yourself, but it's tremendously useful information, even if you have a mechanic do your engine work, because there's nothing that strikes more fear in the heart of a pilot, aircraft owner, than to have a mechanic say, that jug's bad, we're going to have to pull that cylinder and put a new one on your airplane. And so you can get a second opinion using your borescope pictures. So with respect to the point made by Jim, you can plug your phone into your desktop, and at least on my Android, it actually will be seen as a folder that has a folder that's labeled DCIM that has all those pictures in it. You can just move them all to a folder on your machine. This scope that I showed is also capable of recording movies. It'll record MP4 files. So you can look around your cylinder and you can narrate it, and you're using your cell phone's microphone. So you can do a cylinder tour and save your movies. And the major value of these is to be able to look at them from one year to the next. And you can, and as I say, I was shocked at how much carbon I had picked up by flying low and rich in my airplane that normally likes to fly high and lean a peak. So storing those in a folder that's labeled by the date of that you did it, and do it once a year, becomes a very valuable sequence of information about the health of your engine. And you can also get online consultation. Savvy Aviation is probably the best known of those, where for a subscription fee, you can just upload your compression data, your engine monitor data, and your pictures to them, and they will give you an honest second opinion about what you should do next if more diagnosis is needed, and what does or does not need a cylinder replacement, something that would be thousands of dollars. And it's a way to not get in a kind of across the breakers, or get in an argument with your own mechanic. You can just kind of get this extra information, and you might get exactly the same story from both, in which case you'll definitely need to do something. But it's nice that you're not required to have to be the expert to interpret your own pictures, although you certainly can if you wish to. So I think that's all I got, except for any questions or comments.
I have a question.
Yeah.
As you're talking, I got on the Play Store for Android, look for Tesla or Tesla camera, and I see nothing but third-party apps. What are you using, and what app are you using?
So I will send it to you, but it actually is, as I said, when I actually plugged in the camera for the first time on the cell phone, it automatically downloaded the app it wanted from the Play Store. So I don't exactly, I had to agree to do that, but it actually installed its own software. So I will follow up, and I'll send a message, and I'll put it since we're recording this, I'll actually put that. I can't do that right now that I can tell. Hang on.
Yeah, the reason I ask is my phone is about maxed out, and I want to see if I can actually load the app before I buy the camera, if it'll fit on my phone.
Yeah,
I've had to delete some other stuff, and whenever one company comes out with this, you'll probably see 2 or 3 others that have basically the same source. It is like everything else like most everything else on Amazon, it's made in China. So, okay, here we go. I'm going to copy this.
Like 2 years ago, I bought the Vivaldi, or whatever that one's called, with its 640 by 40 resolution. Now I feel like an idiot. I think I've used it once.
Well, but it's sort of so inexpensive, especially, just figure out how much it takes to buy a tank of gas.
Oh, it's less than a tank of gas. No doubt about it.
There it is.
So how long ago did you buy this?
On April the 13th. I'm looking at the
Oh,
order
okay,
here.
approximately.
Yeah, approximately April the 13th at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And here we go. All right, there it is. So go ahead and try that, make sure that that works. But as I say,
Yep, that works.
yeah, I don't have I have no investment in this other than I was just deliriously, unexpectedly deliriously happy customer having used that older 640 by 480, which is sort of like better than no pictures, but you see this kind of dim view of your valve off in the distance, and this thing is just shocking. It's like going to Technicolor. Okay, other questions or comments? All right, well, hearing none, thank you all for showing. I'm amazed. This is such a good group. We got 27, and unbelievably, all 27 stayed to the end. And unless Darren would like to make some closing remarks, this will be the end. Darren?
Dan, yes, thank you very much. I do want to make a comment. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. And it's just amazing what technology's done, where we can bring technology to these older style engines and really get a good diagnosis. And yeah, Mike Bush has been just phenomenal in his approach to solving these things and diagnosing them. So anything that you could read on or his articles, his books, and or his podcasts he's involved in, he's just a wealth of knowledge, and it really makes it that you can almost yourself get in there and really start to look at things and see what the health of your motors are. And I can see that to be extreme value and a pre-buy also. You could really see what's going on there. Like you say, the cross hatching and the cylinder bores there. I mean, that's just huge. But Dan, thank you very much. And thank you, everybody. That was good participation tonight. And that's all I've got. Thank you very much.
That's all we all got. So thanks again. And we can all end with a Zoom wave. Good to
Thanks,
see
Dan.
everybody. Thanks again. Stay safe. See you later.